deal with that. Spawning down on the bottom right, it is the creator of the bomb cloud, Mark uThermal Schlappy.
In the bottom left, as the blue Protoss, he is SKillous.
Now, I feel like I haven't casted much TVP recently, at least not on the actual DreamHack Masters, setup. We've been seeing lots of Stargate play, lots of Twilight Council play. What's been the predominant opener so far?
Twilight Council, so for the most part.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I think Blackburn far more likely to have a Stargate opener. We'll see, of course. But yeah, this ups the Stargate to, I think, the most common tech opener, whereas most other maps, it's still going to say Twilight Council. We even had a couple of robo openers from some of our other Protosses. They were kind of surprising. I had like a Colossus drop. That was just weird. But no, I'm expecting a Stargate here, Twilight Council for the rest of them, and then what that actually means as far as the build order, that's I can't quite predict. 4-gate, 2-gate spans, Phoenix, Colossus. I'm not gonna go as far as to predict that. What I can predict is that uThermal will once again try and end a TVP series by the mid game and not play to the late game almost ever, which is what he wanted to do versus Mana, and he did very effectively. And I really don't know what was up with Mana that day. He actually had a really depressing tweet afterwards. That was quite sad, because I never know what to say to people who tweet, what he did, which is I should just retire. I played so badly. Because I want to tell them no, no, you're great, just you're still in it, just keeping on type situation. But then, sometimes when they tweet that, they're not exactly looking for anything in return. But then you're like, what if no one says anything? Does it just encourage that thought process? Anyways, uThermal very effectively took down Mana in the mid game. He's probably going to look to the same thing versus SKillous, but the difference is I think SKillous will be more so on his A game, and he will not falter there. So it's going to be very, very tricky for uThermal to actually get these map wins, and much less the series win.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that. I feel like that's part of what, makes SKillous such a scary player, is it doesn't feel like there's really that many holes in his play, as we see something very interesting developing. We've got a Stargate at home for SKillous with that delayed warp gate. That's becoming more and more common. Nothing out of the ordinary there. But if we travel north to the faraway lands of the 6 o'clock base, we've got a proxy factory, and I think we're going to see a proxy starport as well.
Steadfast, can you quickly tell me what time it is?
Oh my god, yep. Yep, no, it's, sorry, this is an Australian map. Yep.
Yes, it's upside down. He did mean the 12 o'clock. That's amazing. But yes, 12 o'clock base has a lot more nefarious things going on. We do have a proxy 2-base push, actually. So, when a Protoss player sees the lacking factory and starport, and I do believe uThermal figured he was going to be scouted, because again, Stargate is so popular on this map. There's a small chance that they don't go Stargate or that they keep their Phoenix at home. True. But anyways, the thing about it is that even if he can't stop SKillous from scouting him, the first instinct for a lot of Protosses out there is harassment-based, right? They're going to think Hellions or Woodamines, an armory being hidden somewhere. The fact that SKillous is getting almost a full scout into the main is a big bummer, because you want some ambiguity, right? But regardless, it might be the last thing on SKillous's mind to think of a forward attack coming from a bunch of proxy buildings. But if he finds the proxy buildings, well, he'll know exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's usually a big tell is, does he see it? Does he see it? Oh, not
eventually.
Yet. Yeah, but I mean, timing is important, and he is going to see it now. Oh, just as it loads up. Uh-oh. This is... you talk about deciding in the mid-game. This is a very early stage. Oh, man.
I think there's a little bit of underestimating how quickly the Phoenix are going to kill his medevac. He almost lost a tank there. That would have been devastating. Losing the medevac is obviously not good, but it's still better than losing the tanks, right? That much can easily be said. The tanks and the Marines are still the backbone of this. He's going to be missing some of that healing on those Marines. The SCVs would love to be able to place down a bunker, but that's not going to happen. And when the Immortal pops out, it's going to take down one of these tanks with the shield battery overcharge, still saving the day. Some Marines get picked up, and the Immortal truly living up to its name. That is
it. Was a perfect game.
Really?
That was a perfect game.
Wow, that was a perfect game. Oh my god.
That was a perfect game. 0 units lost.
That's crazy. That
Okay,
almost
hang
never
on.
happens.
uThermal did 1,792 damage during that fight and did not kill a unit.
Yeah, that's like usually a probe is pulled or something. You know, the probe that's building the shield battery is just staying there, something like that. That is insane. Very, very, very quick game, number one. I do believe that even though I was saying that uThermal would have to accept being scouted somewhat with the way that openers work out in this map, I do believe that he didn't think he would be scouted completely, that the Phoenix would dip in and be like, oh, whatever, and then leave, or that he wouldn't get his actual proxy scouted, right? But the fact that SKillous prioritized that over much of anything else was a big reason why an attack like that won't work.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge deal. That is a really, really huge deal.
Yeah.
Well done. Like really, really well done from SKillous. And I think you really hit the nail on the head with making sure that, you know, you don't get spotted at least a little bit of the base, at least a little of it remains hidden. But SKillous saw everything. And if he doesn't, chances are he doesn't, you know, look all over the map, and maybe he doesn't find that, and then maybe everything shows up and there's no Immortal on the field and it's a very different game.
Right, that's very true. And there's also, again, another chance that another Protoss player who I feel like you'd have to know you weren't facing uThermal. You couldn't know you're facing uThermal is a better way to put it. But maybe they don't defend as much as they should. They think, oh, this is kind of silly and I can do whatever I want. I mean, there's that chance too. But obviously with anything like that, we're talking about, it's a cheese, you know, and I know cheese is very loosely defined, but to me, it's anything that depends mostly on being unscouted. You know, when it happens in the early game as well, is usually what it is. So in some way, there had to be a little bit of doubt in SKillous's mind, and there's just no doubt whatsoever. So it's a very, very, very one-sided battle. Usually not so much that it's a perfect game from the Protoss player, but absolutely one-sided. So I feel like uThermal, he still gets enough victories off of these almost comical games, because he'll laugh at it too. When he wins, when he's not supposed to, he'll laugh at it. So it's not PM or anything, basically comical. But he does still get these wins when he kind of shouldn't, you know, or kind of does some like weirder builds. So it's reason enough to try and continue doing them. But it almost feels like uThermal's time to do the cheesiest thing a cheeser can do is near, you know what I mean? Which is to 3CC and be super macro. Because the Protoss players, I think, are way on guard against what he's doing. But he is for one of the groups, so obviously I can't really critique how he's done so far. Whatever he's been doing has been working. It's just not that game, not against SKillous.
No, and that's the thing when you play. If you're playing like that, it's going to hurt at a certain point where eventually you're going to run into someone who deals with it well. And, you know, a couple things going differently, it's a different game. But yeah, I think that was just a really, really strong defense and a really excellent showing. From SKillous, that is.
Right, yeah. Well, you couldn't even really see what uThermal wanted to do in a game like that. You know, you saw the buildings, you saw the move out, and then the battle was over. Nothing complex about it. Bottom left, already sitting out an SCV, he is the Red Terran uThermal.
And his opponent, spawning up at the top right, it is SKillous. And this is kind of a classic uThermal move. You know, loses a game in a little bit frustrating fashion. Not killing a unit definitely falls under the category of very frustrating. And he goes for like a proxy 2 Rex afterwards. Now, SKillous knows his opponent. Is he going to look around for this? Initially, no. But this is still a relatively early scout, and he's he's looking in a like common location.
Yeah, it's more common for proxy single racks with Reaper, though. It looks like the last thing on his mind is a proxy 2 racks, which is fair. You know, uThermal is a man of many builds. He's got 100. So it's equal chance that he is just going for one proxy Reaper. It is anything else, I guess. Even, of course, a not proxy. SKillous is only just now going to confirm that it is proxy 2-racks, which is obviously too late. So that's the power behind the proxy 2-racks, is that it hits as a lot of Protoss players would be scouting the lack of barracks in the main, and they go, oh no. So they've already chosen their build. If you can, if they're a little later to scouting and you get them before they even go for a 7x core first, that would be really cool too. Doesn't happen here. SKillous was obviously going to prioritize scouting, but you can still do some damage. You can still get a surprising amount of damage done, even against a prepared Protoss player, because they are a little late. They don't have like a shield battery already, right? They can't. 7x core isn't finished yet.
I am a little bit surprised he elected to go for the pylon on the low ground. He started that after his opponent did this, and now we're going to see a ton of probes pulled. This is a little bit strange to me out of SKillous. I feel like, well, I guess he just doesn't want to let it get any momentum. That's what it seems like to me.
Right. I think the real complication can sometimes, when it comes to dealing with 2-racks, can sometimes be being holed up in your main base and contained. Protoss player gets very uncomfortable in that situation. But this is perhaps a bit riskier, right? High risk, high reward sometimes. In this case, I think there is going to be a reward, as the bunker is not going to be completed and a stalker is out with a shield battery. Yeah, there's no reward for uThermal, and there is a lot of reward for SKillous, so I probably messed that up, but yeah, definitely a reward for SKillous here.
I mean, I don't know. I think this bunker with an additional SCV coming on in, this is going to be a little bit tricky. No, this is one of the original 2 SCVs. Yeah, he's going to get this up, actually. This is really wonky for SKillous. Great target fire from uThermal. Was able to pick off those zealots. And now, yeah, he's got a fully loaded bunker. I don't know. I think that situation you were talking about where he's contained on one base for a while, that's going to come to fruition, maybe?
Yeah, I guess it is. The fact is, they didn't get to stop that bunker, man. So that is a little more complicated than I was giving it credit for, but
I still don't necessarily like uThermal's position, but I don't hate it. And I really don't think that SKillous needed to go for like the very, very early bust attempt. Oh, getting the deny on the salvage though, that's pretty big.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was like still humming and hawing about, is like, oh, okay, the bunker did get up. All right, fair enough. But it still wasn't as, it's not as fast, basically, right? So if the bunker gets up first and foremost, and then there's still 8 Marines with, healthy and 2 SCVs, then you have to worry about it something coming up on the main base, because you did decide to try and defend at the natural. So you weren't necessarily predicting it to get complicated in the main base. And that's how it would have snowballed. But even though it did get up, it still wasn't a snowball effect, was it? SKillous was still handling this rather calmly. You didn't really have to dedicate too much onto that one base. Yes, you get a Twilight Council before the Nexus, but it's still quite seamless for the Protoss player. So he's going to start up Blink and actually be quite comfortable. Because he also had that probe, which you didn't really talk about, but that probe got back into the main and saw exactly where the follow-up was. And the gas has only recently been taken from uThermal. He had to kill the assimilator with the Cyclone, I guess. It took a very long time.
Yeah, it did take a really long time. And in addition, I think, yeah, if that bunker's a little bit further away from the ramp and, the stalkers aren't able to kill it for free from the high ground, then it's a much worse situation. That's really what the weirdness was there for uThermal, is that he put that bunker in a position where it could get hit from the high ground. And yeah, that if he doesn't do that, then SKillous has to take a lot longer to retake that base. He maybe has to build a shield battery on the high ground.
Right.
And yeah, things are very uncomfortable for him. But instead, uThermal doesn't get the value that he's looking for. He's still got a quicker expansion, but it's by the time he lands it, it's not really. Yeah, exactly. There's already 10 probes mining at the natural from SKillous. This is just kind of a weird game.
I wonder if uThermal's going to go into a combat shield timing after this, just because he is uThermal. If it was any other Terran, it wouldn't even.
Yeah, that's kind of a uThermal thing for sure.
Yeah. Because the points I'm going to bring up here in a normal TDP, if uThermal is just going to grab Stim and combat shield and wait for medivacs, that type of thing, is that SKillous might not have a substantial worker lead, but he does. Well, now has Blink. Nice micro with that stalker being sacrificed for the greater good. It was sacrificed to the high ground tank, so the rest of the stalkers didn't get shot. Anyways, is that Blink finishing? Yes, he just got a tank. That is really cool, but it also means that he just simply has map control for a long time. And he's going to know that. So the only thing that would kind of throw a wrench into that plan is if uThermal was planning a combat shield attack, because then he doesn't have as much time as he's used to. SKillous is playing way more aggressive than I predicted with the blink, man. I don't know if he didn't realize there was a bunker up there, but getting that tank was not worth 7 stalkers in total loss, plus the Viking has been dealing damage. Yeah, this is not clean at all. uThermal is definitely getting the victories, although he may be overreaching. That's a lot of stalkers. Didn't realize there's a proxy warp gate, so we have 2 misconceptions on either side of the field, and that bunker is not yet done. Oh, please finish the bunker.
Oh, and uThermal left about 5 red health SCVs near the front, and that allows SKillous to get equalizing damage. Both of them losing a ton of workers right there, which I mean, in general, that's, you know, somewhat even, but I have heard it claimed that it's worse for the Terran player to lose workers in the early game, and I do tend to agree with that because they're like a higher percentage of your economy, you know? And Chrono Boost rebuilds them more quickly.
It is definitely an argument. I imagine lots of people in chat are shrieking right now. But I think I would agree, because if we think of the early game, we're thinking of basically the Terran being entirely defensive. So again, going back to this blink idea in a game like this. So you lose 6 SCVs early game as a Terran. You don't have a lot of punishing after that. And you are usually just waiting for Stim and Medivacs. Whereas for a Protoss player with the Chrono in effect, right, you can usually maybe be more in charge of the follow-up, I think is the biggest difference. So you can confidently put Chronos into probes where the Terran is just turtling and not doing a whole lot. So I could kind of see that argument. But mules obviously do exist, and they do help cover for some of the early game losses. So it's hard exactly to say, but at the end of the day, in this particular game, they both did equal damage to each other's workers, which is kind of surprising. But uThermal just couldn't get that bunker up in the natural fast enough. But then SKillous dedicates to 2 base.
It's weird. It's a really weird game we found ourselves in here.
Yeah. I kind of like it though. So yeah, it's a hard call, but I think I like it for SKillous' side of things. One of the things that I think goes really wrong for these very hard to call games, in a game where there's a lot of SCV and worker damage in general, is that the Protoss player goes into a Twilight Council build. They go into just kind of the idea of massing units. They can't mass enough units to defeat the bio pound for pound, right? And we know that that's the general gist, is that Protoss would get just a lot of charge lots to kind of make up for the bio effect. But if you're on these weird games, I think that can kill a Protoss player, basically. They can't get to enough to outpace the Terran player who has bio and Medivacs, although 1 less now with SKillous' good blink control. So I like that SKillous chooses to play a very safe game and stay on 2 bases to get Colossus and Charge. I think that's an extremely safe way to play and extremely on point for this type of game.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And knowing SKillous, he could turn this into a 2-base all-in 100%. Oh, he even finds one of those Medivacs I think that was just a misrally from uThermal. That's a really painful loss since he already lost that first one. Stims are going to be really expensive. And look at this concave from SKillous. Extended Thermal Lance finishing up just now. He is going to take a very good fight. Even spreading out the Stalkers to mitigate tank fire. That went so well for SKillous right there.
It did. It really, really did. And uThermal, I think he knows that there was still a chance. You know, as much as I said that I like SKillous' choice in this game, I still think that uThermal had a chance. If everything was together and he didn't lose those 2 Medivacs, and he was more properly positioned, not concave like what just happened there, I think his army still has a lot to offer. But with everything happening the way that it did, uThermal is still in a very tricky spot. I mean, so is SKillous, though. He's not on a 3rd base. This is almost... It's not quite all in, but if it were to be pushed back, he would be in trouble. I just don't think it's going to be pushed back. SKillous can bully uThermal all day long with these Colossus.
Yeah, he really can. He could even potentially hallucinate something, try and get a Widowmine drag. Hallucinate a Phoenix, that'd be a sexy play. Instead, he's going to utilize the Force Field, which is never a bad decision. Will bait out that Widowmine there. This is looking pretty damn scary here for uThermal. He has really nothing that effectively deals with Colossus, only 2 Vikings. And building Vikings on 2 bases is so expensive for a Terran player.
Yes, 100%. Glad you brought that up. It is very expensive to do. And then, regardless, like 2 base just limits you mostly to bio. Yes, you can fit in Vikings, but you certainly can't fit in Vikings and Ghosts, for instance. and vice versa too if this was a more Charge Lot Archon based army. But now it's becoming a bit more Charge Lot Archon based, so you now have two problems. You deal with the Colossus that are going to bully you, and you also have to deal with just the might of Charge Lot Archon, which, you know, does have a little more trouble ending games when the Terran is turtling behind SimCity. So again, I like that SKillous isn't going to push the issue, but he's going to control the game, and that's certainly really good for him now. uThermal cannot afford to do everything a Terran would want to as the game continues on, where SKillous, with this contain, has a lot more freedom back at home to securely and safely get to a third Nexus and then afford whatever he would like to, which, you know, eventually is going to be some upgrades, because that is certainly one thing that SKillous is missing.
Yeah, he delayed that Forge in that third Nexus for a very, very long time. I think he did want to kill uThermal if the opportunity presented itself, but he realized at a very, very appropriate time that, no, I can't really kill him right here. Ooh, almost picks off a Marauder. Nice micro overall, but good hot pickup from uThermal. Good micro and counter micro. But yeah, no, I think that's a very mature decision, I just wanted to say, from SKillous.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. Yeah, this is very good play from SKillous, 100%. And it's still good play from uThermal as well. It's just so uncomfortable for a Terran player, much less uThermal, who we do know is a more aggressive Terran. No Terran wants to be in this position, 100%. But the one thing I was going to mention is that the only thing that was really missing from SKillous was an observer over uThermal's army to know exactly what's going on, if he's dropping or not. And as I said I noticed it's in the very top left of the base, because uThermal planted a missile turret down specifically to stop that from happening. It's kind of two cool things from both players. It does mean that uThermal might have a thread the needle situation if he does pick up two medevacs, but it's very dangerous because he doesn't truly know where the observers are. He doesn't know if he's being tracked or not.
No, exactly. That's such a scary situation for a Terran. In this situation where, you know, one drop going poorly could end the game. We are going to see a big engagement coming on, and he's going to try and get in here with the Ghost. They will land some decent EMPs, but there's so much firepower in his Protoss army, and Skillous just basically bullies him right back into his natural, says, you're not getting out of here, bud.
This might not have been a terrible fight, but, you know, at the end of the day, it is absolutely GG. SKillous takes it 2-0. But the only reason I was going to say